You're listening to Packers Blitz with my co-host Andy, the podcast done by two diehard Packer fans who survived Packer football of the 80s and live to talk about it. This podcast is dedicated to the greatest fans of them all, and that is Packer fans. And Andy, take it away.
That was actually me clapping a second ago, John. Hey, Packer
Nice.
fans out there, welcome to Packers Blitz.
So before we get into Packer news and the game review and all that good stuff, I just want to know.
So how you doing, John?
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, let's
That
get
was
back to
kind of
how
rude
am I
of me.
doing? I'm doing okay. We'll we could be doing better, right? We
Yep.
kind of have a little bit of
I'm not well. There was a reason that we didn't do the podcast on Thursday.
Yes,
after the game.
exactly. And
Okay.
we'll
talk about
get,
that a little bit
yeah,
later.
we'll talk about that. But I'm doing good. I heard you had a day out with the wife, so that's always good, right?
Always the perfect day when that happens.
Yes, always got to take care of the wife. So before we get to the Packer news and game review, like I said, is that the real Aaron Rodgers out there? I really want to know that, Andy, because I think it's his doppelganger, that Frank dude from Germany that they showed at the game last year, and I think earlier this year they showed him. And if it is Frank, get the hell off the field, Frank, and let the real Aaron Rodgers get in there, right? Right, Andy? Come on.
Right. Yeah. Definitely a doppelganger. It's got to be.
So yeah, we'll talk about it here in game review. So let's get right to it because, I first want to do Packer news. Let me back up here for a second. So, Amari Rodgers let go. That's not a surprise, right? Kalen Hill was a little bit of a surprise, but from what I heard is that, and this is from like the Green Bay Press Gazette and Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, is that he kind of had a bad attitude. And I think Matt LaFleur was like, yeah, you have a bad attitude. You can't be here. So that was a little bit of a surprise. And then we got a punt returner, D.D. Westbrook, who has, by the way, 8 career fumbles. And on Thursday, we had Keeson Nixon returning the punts and Old Man Cobby up there. So, yeah, I mean, that was a little bit ridiculous. Andy, do you have anything about the news just in general?
Well, I did want to mention again, and sorry to cut you off, John. Amari Rodgers, 3rd round pick. That draft is looking worse and worse for us, and that's a topic for another show, actually.
Yes, we'll get into that.
And I think that was the draft that we got Stokes in. That was 2021.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, they did an article on it that I read, and we will probably have to look at that again for a later podcast because it's not looking good right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that we had drafted, including the center Myers in either the 4th or 5th round, he has been playing okay. He played a little bit better last year. So again, a topic for another day, but it was not a total surprise that we cut Amari Rodgers. I think out of the 2 players, he was the one that had more draft capital invested in him. So probably the bigger surprise out of the 2, I think you're right, was Kalen Hill. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, Kalen Hill.
And the running back. He was drafted a little bit later in that draft.
Yeah, 7th round.
But yeah, I mean, I don't blame LaFleur at all. And according to what you had heard and what I had read too, because I read several articles on it, things weren't going well with him. And as far as not really meeting expectations, and then his whole compatibility with the organization. So sometimes when you have that cancerous tumor, you have to cut it out. So to speak.
Absolutely. But the better news, Andy, if you could talk about Leroy Butler. Some interesting things to share.
Yeah, defensive back, cornerback, and safety for the Packers. I believe originally he was cornerback, and they eventually moved him to safety because they thought that he would be a little bit better suited for that. He wasn't always the fleetest of foot, but he was a very instinctive player. So I believe that's why they did it, but I'm not part of that particular group that made that decision, but I believe that's what it was. So anyway, he played for the Packers from 1990 to 2001, which was 12 seasons. He spent his entire career, which is really admirable, with the Packers.
That's huge.
So that was pretty awesome. He whenever you hear him talk, whether it's in a induction ceremony for the Packers or whether it's probably going to be in his Hall of Fame speech, I think that's one of the things that he's most proud of. And that has to do with his upbringing and with his mom and whatnot and being loyal and whatnot. So it was great that they could recognize him. They had a special halftime ceremony. He was presented with the Pro Football Hall of Fame Ring of Excellence. He's in the class of 2022. He's going to be inducted. And then his name was also added to the Lambeau Field facade. So if Packer fans out there, you're at the game at Lambeau, you will see his name immortalized up there with the great Packer greats. He was the first defensive back in NFL history to record at least 35 career interceptions and 20 sacks, which is pretty darn amazing.
That is.
He was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 31, four-time first team All-Pro, four-time Pro Bowler, member of the NFL 1990s All-Decade team, and again, Green Bay Packers Hall of Famer. He was also immortalized in that he was the first one that did the Lambeau leap, the first Lambeau leap on December 26th of 1993. So congratulations to Leroy, and onto our game preview where there weren't enough Lambeau leaps for the Pack on Thursday night.
Yeah, so let's get to this. Okay, so I like to use like one word to kind of like sum up games, right? I think it's really easy to do that, and people kind of get it, right? So the loss to the Lions was humiliating. Okay, that's the word I wanted to use. That I used.
Good word.
I would like to use the word embarrassing, and this is what I said about last week's game. Balance. That's the reason we won. Balance in the passing game, balanced in the running game. This game had no balance, no urgency. You know, I always tell if you're losing and you're struggling, you want to play like your ass is on fire. You want to get out there. You want tempo. You just want to go because you're like, at very least, okay, we're going to just come at you, and you either one will get too tired to make a mistake and we'll beat you, or at the end of the day you'll say, hey, you guys really came at us, and boy, it was a challenge, right? And really, with one thing I really saw was the defense played okay, gave us the ball a couple of times. We did nothing with it. Christian Watson seems to be the real deal. He have 5 touchdowns in 2 games. He's definitely a win for us. Quay Walker showed some flashes on defense. Special teams is still an issue. And like I said, we signed a punt returner, D.D. Westbrook. He didn't even play. So I just before I get to Andy's review, Andy, I have a question for you, a little trivia question. When was, and you see the answer, but don't say it.
Okay?
Do I? When was the last time the Packers returned a punt?
For a touchdown?
Yes, for a touchdown. You can see the answer, but I want you to, if you didn't know, If you couldn't see the answer, what would you say?
Well, if I hadn't have saw the answer, which I did, but if I hadn't have seen it, I probably would have made a crack that the last time that I saw a punt return for a touchdown would have been in the Super Bowl, but that would have been actually a kickoff return. I believe. I don't think that was a punt return in the Super Bowl 31, which we talked about just a few minutes ago, that Leroy Butler was in. So I think we had a kickoff
So
for a
you would
touchdown.
be
Yeah, yeah, that would.
wrong.
Yeah, and oh, okay,
So
okay.
last time, this is nuts. The Green Bay Packers returned a touchdown, a punt return touchdown, was against the Lions on December 28th, 2014. That's
Mm.
8 years ago, almost a decade. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, that's insane. I mean, what we brought Rich Braska, whatever his name is, brought him in, this guru, and he has done literally nothing. We brought guys in from his team, the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, who are just special team guys, and they've done nothing. So when you combine it in, we don't have a plan. We have no urgency. We have really nothing to show for it from that great momentum from the Dallas win. I just couldn't take it. I watched most of the game, and then near the end there, I was like, this is crazy. I can't do this anymore. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Andy, your thoughts. Why don't you hit us with some stats and some other insight?
Yeah, John. Well, first of all, it was a really, really tough game, and it took, like I had kind of mentioned earlier, about 3 days to finally to do this podcast, to do Packers Blitz, and there is a sense of urgency because now we have to basically win out, and we don't have much margin for error at all.
No.
It's going to take a record of, say 10-7, 9-8 to get into the playoffs. And right now, we're 4-7. And so what comes to mind is playoffs.
Playoffs.
Seriously, the division is all but lost.
It's lost.
You've got Minnesota sitting there, I believe, at 8 wins, and they only have
Yes.
one loss on the
Yeah.
season.
Division's
And
over.
they're almost there. They haven't. I don't believe they've clinched it yet, but they're gonna do that pretty soon with either one or two more wins. So it's not looking good for that part of it. I wish I could say that wasn't the case. But so another sad fact, John, and I kind of wrote this out in quotes and everything, but basically, with a win on Thursday night, the Packers would have overtaken the Bears as the NFL's all-time winningest franchise with 787 wins. Unfortunately, that number is still at 786 and holding. So that was another gut punch because I hadn't realized that till Al Michaels had mentioned it.
Come on!
On Prime Video, which was a very interesting fact. And I'm sure somebody in the stats department was handing them something, but that was actually smart that they mentioned it. It just made it worse that we didn't win. So my 5 takeaways from the game is that we were number one and foremost outcoached by Coach Mike Vrabel, who's an excellent coach, and he should have won head coach of the year last year. Didn't win it last year. It's just kind of sad because you got Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur, that coached with him at Tennessee, was on his coaching staff, knew Tennessee, knew their players, knew the head coach, and he got out coached. So that's a topic for another day, John.
Right.
Is Matt LaFleur, sorry, keep saying Mike, Matt LaFleur, the answer, for, the Packers and for their coaching position. So yes, the Packers were 13-3, and then I think 13-4. The other podcast, I think I said 13-3 again, but so we've been winning the last 3 years, 13 wins every single year, which is awesome. But again, against really good teams and really good coaches, for whatever reason, Matt has not stepped up. And he was, again, on so many different levels. I mean, in pretty much every phase of that game, they were out coached and out schemed. That's a testament to Mike Vrabel and his staff, and hats off to them. And they beat us. And they beat us. They manhandled the Packers in the trenches, and we lost because of it. So
By the way, Andy,
unfortunately,
just really quick, sorry to interrupt you. One thing I
sure.
forgot to put in Packer news is this makes it even worse. We brought in a new coach called Aubrey Pleasant from Detroit. He was the guy who got fired from the Lions. He was the cornerbacks coach. He worked with Matt LaFleur with the Rams, and he was brought in to look at the Packers offense and try to improve it from a defensive way so the Packers could be more efficient. That did not work, obviously.
Nope, it did not.
So anyway, you were going in, lost in the trenches, no sense of urgency.
Well, that's what Mike Vrabel is all about. He's tough. He's physical. He played the game before. Okay. I believe linebacker for the
Patriots.
New England Patriots, right?
Sacked Rodgers twice in his career.
So again, he has a culture.
Mm-hmm.
He has an identity. He finds a way to motivate his players that they play hard for him. And for us to be at home and for us to play like that, and it seemed at times that we were just not even excited and motivated. And I understand it was 6 degrees or whatever it was, but still, this is what you play for. These are the moments that you have to step up. So there wasn't that sense of urgency and the intensity that we needed to win, and that nonchalant attitude that it seemed like they had wasn't going to cut it against a well-coached team, a very physical team like the Titans. You can't do that against really good teams. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC last year, I believe.
Yes,
in fact,
they lost it.
I know that.
Like
yes, they lost in the very first game against
Cincinnati.
First game
against Cincinnati, sacked Burrow 9 times and still lost that game.
Right. Yep. So there was a lack of. Also, this is the fourth thing. Sorry, I'm not really numbering them off, but the fourth thing was the lack of execution in all phases: defense, offense, special teams. The defense couldn't get off the field. There were sustained drives. In the second quarter, there was a drive, I believe, that the Titans had that was 18 plays. 18 plays.
Right.
The offense, in a nutshell, Tannehill outplayed Rodgers. He outplayed him. He had 300 this is off the top of my head, actually, John. 333 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And the one interception was awful.
Yeah.
And gave us an opportunity to get back into the game. But in the end, it didn't even hurt him or hurt the Titans. So
Tannehill.
And then the last thing on special teams, again, we had a blocked extra point. I think it was. We had to go for a 2-point conversion later in the game.
Again.
Seriously, Packers, come on.
Yeah.
Can we get special teams right? So
can we? No.
And then probably the number one thing, and I say this for last, this is the 5th takeaway that I had, is that we had horrendous pass defense. And I know they were trying to stop Derrick Henry. Duh. We were playing off those wide receivers. I don't know how far. And there were some
Too
other
far.
radio disc jockeys and whatnot I was listening to that were local in Madison that will remain nameless. But there were several of them that were saying they couldn't even see our quarterbacks in the screen, whereas the Titans were up and doing press coverage and, trying to kick the out of us. So I didn't understand it. Those guys, you got one rookie and then the other guy can't even pronounce his name, and you made them look like they were all world. You're making them look like AJ Brown. AJ Brown doesn't play for the Tennessee Titans anymore.
I know.
He plays for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
But
we'll get
you had
into that
Treylon
later.
Burks, who's supposed to, be his replacement, and you made him look great. That was the first time he had over 100 yards. I think it was 111 off the top of my head. I think he had 111 yards.
Yeah.
So, so I looked at the stats and I tried to come up with the one thing
we gotta stay
that was
positive.
a positive. The one thing was that we had an interception.
Yeah, we did.
For the Packers D, that one interception we were talking about.
So
and that was really the only thing out of all the metrics that you could possibly look at that we were ahead in.
Yeah.
So we got beat in all three phases of the game. And it was really hard to come up with some positive things, but.
Well, there we go. There we go. So I cannot figure out Joe Barry. I get it. They're trying to put a pass rush together, and you don't want to play up to the line of scrimmage with your corners, because if Henry breaks one, it's over, because no safety in this league is going to tackle Derrick Henry at full speed. That's not happening. You're going to push him out maybe. But Tannehill would get back there, like you said, and he would just flick it. He'd just flick, and you'd be like, okay, somebody jump that route. Somebody has to jump that route.
But our corners, John, they were not anywhere close. There were times that they were running across the field or, just wide open.
Yeah.
And you just can't have that.
No, you cannot have that.
It's professional football. It's the NFL. If you give
Tannehill, you're in your 11th game. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, come on. And you're at home.
You're absolutely right.
And we didn't even get to. It's a short week, right? You had this huge momentum from the Dallas game. It's a short week. You're at home. You're practicing at home. Tennessee played a crappy game against. I can't think who it was. It doesn't matter. They went like 14-10, had zero offense, looked like crap. So everything was lining up. We had the momentum. We were ready. And then we come out and sleepwalk through everything. And again, it's embarrassing. It's just, I'm tired of being embarrassed as a Packer fan. And they got booed. Just one quick thing before I move to our topic. I think it was funny. They got booed, and I was
laughing I can't even hear you, John, over the booing. They were actually booing at Aaron Rodgers. I was going to bring it up later.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers.
That's kind of one of my parting thoughts, which I will probably repeat again.
Yeah, sure. And his quote was, and I quote, "That's interesting." Only Aaron Rodgers would be like Spock from Star Trek. Fascinating. Booing. Interesting. Anyway, so anything you want to add really quickly before we move on to today's topic?
John, we could talk about this for a while, couldn't we?
Yeah, and people, we want to put this to bed, right? Because it's not going to get any better, right?
Yes.
But hopefully we can make you feel better by talking about it.
So next topic, John. Moving on. Are we being Favre'd again?
Are we being Favre'd again? So one thing, and Andy has some really good points here, which I'll let him take this. One of the things is we've had, like we've said before in this podcast, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 30 years. And we've gone to 3 Super Bowls. We are 2-1 in those Super Bowls. So we're winning a Super Bowl basically every decade. which is maybe not the best, but it isn't better than nothing. Uh, I just am shocked that we can never ever get to a point, and we've had some talented teams. Let's be honest. We had Jermichael Finley and Greg Jennings, and when Cobb was a little younger, and James Jones, and Jordy Nelson, and I mean, we had some that was a talented receiving core. I mean, one of the best ever in Packers history. Didn't win a
Sterling
Super
Sharp.
Bowl with
Remember Sterling Sharp?
one
Favre
Super
was
Bowl.
thrown to
Well,
him too.
Sterling Sharp, yes, but he
Yeah.
was one guy. Okay, we won one Super Bowl with that receiving core. We should have won two. Anyway,
That's
so
true.
one of the things, at least two. So, Andy, why don't you talk about the things you put down here of why, or should say, how are we going to get back to a Super Bowl, and kind of why we haven't won another Super Bowl with, two Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So, start with number one, weapons and playmakers. So,
Yeah, so there's several things that is going to need to happen for the Packers to win another Super Bowl. And so I'm going to go through each one of these. I've got five points, but and then I'll have probably John. I'll ask John his thoughts on each one. So yeah, so the first thing was the Packers need weapons. They need playmakers. Offensive league again. You've got the reigning two-time MVP Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers brass needs to surround him with more offensive weapons. And so the only first round pick chosen on offense, on the offensive side of the ball recently, in recent memory, was quarterback Jordan Love, who again, we've talked about a little bit, is a total bust. And so you have the quarterback, you have Aaron Rodgers, now get him some help through the draft. And so you have to use some high draft capital on offensive players, not that they haven't a little bit here and there.
they have.
We might have had that second round pick, that running back that's, pretty good, AJ Dillon. But what I'm talking about is really, really high draft capital where we're using a first round pick here and there. They've invested a lot on the defense, which doesn't seem to be helping matters too much because they look worse than last year's group. So, but anyway, I'm going to hand it over to John, at least with the first point, getting us weapons and playmakers. Got any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, you covered that really well. I don't have really anything to add other than if you're going to put people on defense and basically say, we're going to have a great defense. So Aaron Rodgers, hey, sit back and relax. It's okay that you don't have the weapons that you need. We're going to have a defense that's going to give you the ball. So don't worry about it. You might have the ball, 5 more times a game because of our defense. That hasn't happened. So next topic, if you want to take it over, Andy, with the offensive line.
Yeah, we are going to need a stout offensive line. We talked a little bit about this last podcast, so I'm not going to go into it a whole lot, but I like what I've seen lately from our offensive line. You had Elton Jenkins playing guard next to Bakhtiari, and they did a phenomenal job. I thought the line did a good job. The run game wasn't great, but they at least protected Rodgers. It wasn't like Rodgers was getting hit a whole lot. He just wasn't finding open people and then hitting them with passes. So we're going to need a stout offensive line moving forward, and you have to protect your franchise quarterback again.
Yep.
You don't need him pressured, sacked. And so if you're going to make it deep into the playoffs, you're going to have a really stout offensive line. And that's what a couple really good NFC teams have right now. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a massive offensive line. And you've got the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, I hate to mention them, but those two top teams have actually halfway decent offensive lines. So again, protect your franchise quarterback. Jordan Love is not it.
No. So
John,
let's go
any
to
thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm more focused on here, the third one with my boy, recommitment by Aaron. I'm gonna let you go through some of your points, but I just read an article about this. Now, here's the problem with that. Let's put it this way. Let's say you're working at a job, right? And you're the top employee. And everybody knows it. Okay. and you come up to your boss and you say, "Hey, I need a little help. Could you like hire some people that could help me out with some things?" And the boss says, "Sure. Um, I don't know. Let me try this. Let me get a couple people here for you." And then they bring the people in, and you go, "These are it." Uh, But what? Come on. And the boss says, "Well, sorry, this is the best we're going to do," which Gutekunst has said to Aaron Rodgers, at least this is Aaron Rodgers, and I quote, "We got to do the best with what we have." So, does do you want to commit to a team that the head guy goes, your boss goes, "Hey, either live with this or leave. That's your choice, pal." So, kind of go into some of the things you have here. That was kind of my feeling on it. But you have some things about restructuring the contract and about him drinking funky tea and some other things.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you, I don't know if I'm going to talk about all those things, but you know, Rogers has said this. I'm totally committed in this and that, and I would have to
Yeah.
disagree with that
Okay.
because
So why?
he's talking about retirement all the time. He needs to knock that off right
Hey,
now.
so did Favre. Remember Favre for like
I
4 or
know,
5
and he
years
didn't
was
learn a
always
thing
there.
about what happened with that whole relationship between the Packers and Favre.
Yeah,
So
we'll
I
get
mean,
into
I'm
that.
sorry, he lived it. He was there. He's acting, a lot like
Mhm.
Brett Favre did at
Kind
the
of.
end, in some ways.
Yeah, in some
So he
ways, I
needs to
agree.
stop talking about the retirement things and
Yeah.
just. I know what you're saying, John, is a totally valid point. It's a two-way street. You've got upper management, and then you've got Aaron Rodgers, and there needs to be a cohesiveness and a togetherness moving forward. And how do you get to that? We thought because of last year they'd kind of mended some of those fences, so to speak. I don't know if that's the case at the moment. I don't really
Yeah,
know, but
I don't know about that.
personally, I'd like to see Aaron Rodgers come to OTAs, be with his young
Mhm.
receivers,
Yeah.
spend some time with them, some QT with them, just like if he had kids or had a wife, and showed some commitment to them.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to see. That's
Yeah.
not what happened.
No, that's not
His
gonna happen.
contract is an albatross around the Packers' necks
Oh,
that's going to
huge.
continue to drag them down.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can restructure or do
No.
something with that? I don't know. I
No.
don't know the answers to that.
No.
I would
Like I
like to
told
know
you,
the
Andy.
answers to that, but
Yeah, let me just really quickly, sorry to interrupt you, buddy, but just really quickly, remember people, he's due $40 million before June, I believe, 15th. So if so no, yeah, so before June 15th, if we don't do anything, he gets 40 mil. But there's something in his clause that if after June 15th we decide like before midnight he says, "Well, I don't know, we can release him or he retires and we only owe him 15 mil." So still, it's not going to be cheap. It's not like we're going to save a ton of money. You can say, "Well, yeah, you are. You're saving like 25 mil." Right. But still, we have the Bakhtiari contract. We have Aaron Jones due 20 million. We have Jordan Love if we want to keep him. He's due 20 mil. So you don't have anywhere to go. We're going to probably be like 7 to 8, maybe a little higher than that, obviously, if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire and Aaron Jones decides to leave and same Jordan Love, sure, right? So that was to your next question. Kind of, well, a little bit sneaking ahead here. You said drafting the next A-Rod. I'm going to stop you right there. If we do that, people will literally burn us, like burn Lambo down, because people would be like, "Now hold on, you drafted well, you didn't draft Favre, but you brought in Favre, you brought in A-Rod. Now you bring in another guy, Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, hold on, you guys are what's going on, right?" Because there's teams out there can't even draft one Hall of Fame quarterback. So you can kind of go into that a little bit, but I kind of was like, no, that's not going to happen. And if it does happen, people are going to lose their minds. So anyway, if you want to go into that and kind of how we're going to do that. I'd love to hear it.
Well, what I meant by that is you have to have a plan moving forward. You have to have
Yeah.
goals in mind, which is winning a Super Bowl. And as an organization, they have to at some point draft an eventual heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
And so you have to have a plan, 3 years out, 5 years out, whatever it is. A-Rod probably won't be playing another 6 years, 7 years. He won't
No,
be.
he's already said he
We
wouldn't.
hate to mention Tom Brady, but he probably won't make it
Don't get me started on him.
to that. I don't think that's part probably of, Aaron Rodgers' plan. But
No.
in the next few years, I mean, I think you definitely, again, as we talked about, a commitment to one another, and then for them to communicate with him and tell him what their plan is, and be transparent and say,
Exactly.
we
Yes.
need to eventually draft a replacement. Can you help us with this? Can you nurture that replacement? We will commit to you
That's
for the
asking
next,
a lot.
say, 3 years. And they should have did this a long time ago. They should
Well,
have
they did with
did that.
Jordan Love, right?
Yeah,
They did. They brought Jordan Love in, and everybody lost their cotton picking minds, their cheesy
right. But
minds.
again, A-Rod was taken by surprise, which is not the way to do it moving
No,
forward. So
that's
you
not
have
the
to
way to
be
do
able
it.
to, again, communicate with him. So
Yeah. So anyway, let's
yeah.
move on to, you said, money to trade. There's some interesting points in here. So tell me about that.
Maybe I should just read it verbatim instead of winging it. Okay. So the only way for the Packers to surround its star quarterback with talent is either to have a team-friendly deal in place, probably not going to happen, or
No,
have a quarterback that is still on his rookie deal.
no.
Right. Well, typically that's what a lot of
Yeah, I
organizations
know.
are doing now. They're trying to draft young
Uh-huh.
guys that can play right away so that they can pay their other stars money. So that's what I meant by that. So the team has financial control typically for 5 years, or franchise tag even towards the end of the rookie deal. So, for example, the Baltimore Ravens with star quarterback Lamar Jackson. But look at it right now. That whole relationship between those two has started to maybe go sour a little bit. So,
Yes,
that's not the best idea to wait either. So, especially
no.
when you have your franchise quarterback. So, and I don't know if it's coming across the right way, but I'll say it. The pack is currently kind of being held hostage by
Yeah,
Aaron
they are.
Rodgers' contract to a certain extent. It's easy for John and I to say, "Yeah, hey Aaron, can you just take a 10 million, 20
Yeah,
million dollar
off the
pay
top.
cut?"
Yeah.
I understand from Rodgers' standpoint, we're in a small market, the smallest market in professional sports,
Right.
and to a certain extent, he wants his money. So I do
He
understand that.
deserves his money,
Right.
doesn't he?
So,
I think he
but
does.
is there a way to compromise, rework his cap number to free up money? Who knows? But, and then I did say, hello, Brian Gutekunst.
Oh my
Let's go get a wide receiver one like DJ Moore. Use any money that we do have to get a really good player, and a wide receiver would be nice. But you need to try harder, Brian. And what we need to do is, since we do have our franchise quarterback, we need to win, and we need to win now.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Let's get to another Super Bowl. Otherwise, what's the point? Do something while you still have the franchise quarterback, and one that is able to take the Packers to a Super Bowl and win it, as Rodgers has done in the past. So hopefully those 5 things happen, and happen soon. And hopefully we can have Aaron Rodgers with us and with the team a few more years longer. And hopefully we don't have to move on from A-Rod, which is a really tough thing to say.
Yeah. Again, you're talking to two people who watched 80s football with their dads, their uncles, whatever, and it was painful. And we are heading that way. So here's what I want to sum up just really quickly, and let's get on the game preview of the Eagles coming up, is sometimes I look at people like Gutekunst is, we all know people who fail up. So Gutekunst was under Thompson and partly under Ron Wolf. Okay. Two legends of general managers, right? So, and he was under McKinsey and Dorsey was there. And, who else was there? A couple other guys. Oh, Schneider was there. So guys who have won Super Bowls and been extremely successful. And his draft class, like we just talked about earlier, last year was is or a couple years ago, I should say, 2021 is a disaster for the most part. Stokes is playing well. Myers is playing well. Okay. Really, Kylan Hill gone. Who else is gone? Mari Rogers, we said. So my whole thing is, what the Packers need to do is really take a book from like what the Eagles were have been done, and they built their depth up, they built their team up around a quarterback. I feel he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback now, could be in the future, but he's good enough for them to win. So drafting that Aaron Rodgers apparent, get somebody like Jalen Hurts, who can always keep you in the games, who's not going to make those oh my God throws like Rodgers does, but just does enough. So that's really wrapping that up. So let's get on the game preview. Packers Eagles. Mine is short and sweet. We lose this game, season's over. That's it. Andy, take it from here.
Yeah, so the game is on Sunday, the November 27th at 7:20 p.m. Just to let everybody know. So it's a nighttime game. And so I watched the entire Philly loss, which was their first of the season against the Washington Commanders last week.
Yeah, I saw the highlights.
Watched the entire game, start to finish. And Philadelphia did lose that game. They played really sloppily. They had 4 uncharacteristic turnovers. Normally, they're really good with securing the ball, especially their maybe future Hall of Fame quarterback, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he turned the ball over, and the Philly turned the ball over quite a bit. The defense couldn't stop the run. A couple running backs, Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, ran all over them, especially Brian Robinson, who really didn't do much against us.
No.
So the Washington Commanders, too, were susceptible to the pass. They don't have a very good pass defense, and Hurts only threw for 175 yards. They lost the tight end, Dallas Goedert, got injured, which didn't help them. And then the surprising thing, not too surprising, but the Commanders' defensive line controlled the line of scrimmage against one of the top, if not the top, offensive line in the NFC. Maybe only second to San Francisco. The 49ers win healthy. And so I also watched early in the year, and I just want to mention this because the Vikings lost. Vikings lost 24-7 against them in week 2.
Blew them out, yeah.
Yeah, I watched that entire game. Actually, Philadelphia looked awesome, totally awesome in that game, and just Kirk Cousins looked like Kirk Cousins usually does on national TV. I think it was a Monday night game. He looked just awful in that game. And so just wanted to repeat that several times. So anyway, it's kind of a change for Philadelphia in that they didn't look good the last game against Washington, but again, early in the year against the Vikings looked pretty awesome. So I don't have the Red Zone channel like John has, so I don't usually watch every single game, but those 2 games I did watch Philadelphia play. So I think for the Packers, I guess, yeah. What's the point? What's the point of all this? The point is that our recipe to win is going to be to probably try to run the ball, like the Commanders did that game, and we didn't do a very good job against the Titans. We did a better job against Dallas. It's going to have to look a little bit more like Dallas if we have any chance of winning. The the offensive line and the defensive line for the Philadelphia football team for the Philadelphia Eagles are really, really good on both sides. They're very, very deep, and they're very, very large gentlemen. And I say that because, of course, I don't, if they actually listen to this podcast, I wouldn't want them to, get mad at me or anything. So, but they are a tough matchup, just like the Titans were. They're a lot like the Titans are from the AFC. I think Philadelphia is a very similar team from the AFC. So I'm not going to make any predictions like last time because that backfired.
Because if we lose,
so I'm not going to do that. So
we have to win. We have to win. All right. So let's end the show here. Andy, closing thoughts. And we always like to end it positive on Packers Blitz.
That's for sure. On Packers Blitz, we try our best, even after last game, to stay positive. So remember, Packer fans, we love football. We love the Green Bay Packers. Stop. Please stop booing the team and Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
The reality is the team and its fans need to keep the faith, support our team, and go Pack, go.
Yes. Well said. So mine is just really one quick thing, and we'll have him as a guest later on. I haven't talked to Andy about this, but one of my friends made this documentary called Last Day at Lambeau about the Favre Packers divorce. I put a link up on our website, Packers Blitz website. Please watch it. And if you could give him a little bit of money because he did this independently. He's a good guy. Like I said, we'll have him on the show later. It's a brilliant documentary. Andy, check it out. It's right on our website if you haven't watched it already. And I just want to borrow a line from the movie Anchorman. Stay classy, Packer fans. The season isn't over yet. We love you, and we will hopefully see you next week. It's Thanksgiving. We'll be watching a bunch of football, eating turkey, getting fat. But I'll talk to Andy, and hopefully you can have another podcast out there. So good night, Packer fans. Andy, anything else?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, and enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Love you, Packer fans.